Welcome back to Benny's Custom Works, power supported by Valvoline and Sparesbox. Don't forget BCW5 on checkout. This week, we're back on the Sigma. We are doing some housekeeping stuff because now that it's up and running and drivable, there's a few things that I've found that have popped up, namely the slip yoke in the transmission. It was a farm find, shall we say. It came out of a paddock, and unfortunately the corrosion was so bad and so pitted that the transmission was constantly leaking past the rear seal. I did think maybe it was just a seal. I was hoping it was just a seal. I've already changed the seal. It's still no good. So we have a brand new genuine Hardy spicy yoke there and another front uni to go in. The guys at Daniel's Engineering in Wollongong actually supplied that. Shout out to them, because those legends saw my post on Instagram and messaged me and said, there's already one on the way. Here's an invoice. Thanks for coming. So that was really awesome. So yeah, thanks again to those guys. But we're also going to do some other stuff. I've got some new door cards to go on. The fuel tank has a leak, so we're going to look at that. And if we get time today, we're also going to put all the rear Bailey channels in the back doors, which we were supposed to do like 2 years ago, literally. So yeah, hopefully we can get a few more things done today that's going to make this thing nicer. Moving forward, we're going to have the seats retrimmed. I'm not sure on the ETA on that yet, but that's kind of the last thing to make it really nice. I do have a chin spoiler to go on it. It is too wide. We are going to have a bit of a look at that today to work out the best way to attack it, but it's probably going to be a separate video later on cutting that and shortening it and re-glassing it back together. Then we're going to paint it badly with rattle cans and then look at it from 10 feet and it'll be mad. But there's going to be all sorts of little things going on today, so let's dive on into it. It is worth mentioning that I actually pieced this tail shaft together at some point during the build. It's a 5-speed Sigma tail shaft for a GE with a GK yoke on it, because the GE box has the smaller inputs and outputs. So we needed the larger slip yoke, but luckily the unis are still the same. And to Chrysler or Mitsubishi's credit, depending on who you look at and what era, the unis are actually recycled from an older Holden. So the availability is fantastic. The local parts shop literally had them on the shelf. So it was a 10-minute job to get a set of unis for it. I was a little bit concerned that maybe that was going to be something a bit oddball, but that was not the case. And when I put it together, I put new front and rear unis in it at the time. But I thought, being that we're going to put a new yoke in it, we may as well put another front uni in it, being that they are so cheap. And then also you guys can see how badly I butcher a tail shaft, so we all get a bit of an adventure. There was no hope that was ever going to seal. I was just being impatient and wishful, but yeah, that is pretty thrashed. It's a bit of a bummer that that couldn't be saved, but luckily you can buy brand new ones. And interestingly, this one is actually labelled in the Hardy Spicer catalogue as a Nissan yoke. I'm not sure what Nissan would have used this. It'd be cool to actually find out what it cross-references to, but that's our brand new non-yucky looking yoke, and the length all looks pretty good. So we'll slide it in just to make sure it is 100% the same. Oh, this could be a bad time. Well, this could be a short video. So unfortunately, as it happens with cars, sometimes you get the wrong parts. Turns out there's 2 different 24 spline slip yokes that are only 1 millimeter difference in the major diameter of the spline and also the machined outer section of the yoke. We need the other one, which apparently is also for a Commodore. So we should see that in a couple of days, but it means we're not going to have it in this particular episode. So in a future episode, we'll be rebuilding that tail shaft, but we're going to dive into some other stuff. Super little simple stuff. I've got to recenter the steering wheel. I've made a little puller that I'm going to show you guys. I've also got to change the door cards, the rear Bailey channels. And because we're not doing the tail shaft, we're actually going to start looking at the front lip today. It is too wide because on paper it's for the Cresta, but it never fit the Cresta properly. So I kind of just put it on the shelf. I bought another one back in the day that also didn't really fit 100%. So this one looks like it's going to be pretty easy to cut up, and basically going to have to section 2 strips about 10 millimeters out of it on each side to close it up. We can't just cut a piece out of the middle because it's actually a peaked lip. So if I was to do that, we would lose the peak out of it. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of fiddling around, but should work out pretty well. I think it'll look perfect, exactly the look I'm going for. So yeah, we're going to bring the car back down now. We'll do all of the stuff we need to do, and then we're going to finish up with the lip because I'm going to have to go and buy some fiberglass stuff that I don't already have. Don't cut toward yourself. The internet. Lucky it's the most bluntest Stanley knife blade known to man. They're very well packaged, I'll give them that. Now let's hope that all the clip brackets are in the same spot on an Aussie and a Japanese car. I doubt they would go to the effort of pressing different steel door panels. These are cool, they're pressed aluminium. These seem to be in the same spot. And also the window one is in the same spot. And the door handle cutout's in the same spot. Hopefully. There should be no reason why they're different though, because the A121 and 131 are effectively a GE and a GH, which share the bulk of the car is the same. Like the doors are the same, the boot lid's similar, the front guards are similar. Like there's not a lot of difference. Like, I mean, the grain of the vinyl is different, but the actual molding is very similar. Interestingly though, they're obviously not made, like these must have been made in Australia because they're just completely different in the way that they're made. Like the foam is different. And these have actually swollen really badly, interestingly, and the Japanese ones haven't. So I'm not sure why that is, but yeah, the vinyl and the foam's all broken down. So even just putting these on will be a nice addition. So the trim clips are completely different too. The Australian ones have like a plastic, almost Christmas tree type plug, but the Japanese ones have these metal clips, which there's a lot of them actually missing off these door cards. So hopefully we can conjure up enough to do the set. I was hoping to kind of steal them off the Aussie door cards, but seems they're not the same. Oh, there's another one. That'll be enough to hold it on as long as they're in the same spot. Yay. Be interesting to see if these handle surrounds came from Japan. I can't decide if I'm gonna actually paint these the tanny cream color, if I'm just gonna paint them black. Because there are black accents throughout the car. Like the dash is black, the carpet's now black. On the rear doors, they actually have black ashtrays in the JDM panels as well. So I'm not too sure if these will look good black or if they'll look better in the tan, but at least we've got options. Geez, this side looks sad. The passenger one wasn't too bad, but this one's just grot. I mean, the difference is pretty clear to see here, and this one is very badly weathered. This one is almost pristine. The very common problem with Sigma door cards, I mean above the clear condition of this one, is that the lock inserts are quite commonly missing, but this set of JDM cards has the full set of inserts, so I'm stoked with that. They're quite hard to come by. I'm sure someone probably 3D prints them now, but you can't get them chrome, and the factory ones are chrome, so it's nice to kind of maintain that. But yeah, this one's pretty sad. I didn't actually realize how bad this one now, having it next to another one, it shows how bad it is. And interestingly, under where the handles were, this is actually the same color, which I never realized. I thought these were two different color trims, but having this under the door handle patch, you can actually see that this was originally the same color as this trim. So actually more happy with that now. Make sure we've got enough clips on it. It doesn't have all the original clips, but we'll definitely have enough in it to get by, because these clips are much tighter than the original Australian ones. Just wrestling door trims. Oh, just have a nap on my back. Oh, the back is more snug than the front. So the Jap ones have black ashtrays, but the Aussie one has a tan ashtray. I don't know which one I like more yet. I mean, I'd love to have no ashtrays in the doors, but it is the 70s. Smoking's still healthy in Japan because the government owns the cigarette companies. Oh, you know what I like about working inside doors? It's nothing.
I could have guessed it.
Oh my God, Daddy, your car's so bad for the environment. This is one of those things where you should probably read the instructions.
You actually have those, don't you?
I do, but I feel like that's cheating at this point. There's always a way to get a window out, and it's always horrible.
You know what's worse than getting it out?
Probably putting it back in. Oh, this is scary. Because because these rubbers are so old. That Paley channel's done. Marginally less concerning than I'd imagine. You know what the best thing out of this whole exercise is? We can put these on. This is what's going in the bin. Actually, that'll give us a cut length anyway. It's exactly what I wanted to not happen. Snippety doodah. Ah, my finger.
Yeah, they'd probably get your finger good.
Yeah.
What you want in those triggies.
Apart from the finger amputation thing. I mean, in an emergency situation, it might be handy to have a tool that you can amputate a finger with, but having never been in that situation, what do you reckon would be harder? Cutting your own finger off or cutting someone else's finger off?
That's a good question.
Let me know in the comments. And this is how we get ragey. Hey, look at that, it fits. This has not been a painful experience thus far. I was very hesitant to do this job. That's probably part of the reason why it's taken, what, 18 months since we did the front doors, probably? This has restored my faith in pulling doors apart, this car. And of course it's a short thread countersunk screw. I feel like I f***ed up.
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like you have to put this window in before that one. It's funny. You have a project car forever and you like 95% it, and then as soon as you decide to sell it, it's like, oh, I should probably finish it. Those door trim clips are so much better than Australian ones. Yeah, I'm still so on the fence about what colour to paint these. Or the door strikers. Like here, they're noisy now. After a few goes, that'll shut up. Hopefully. Fixed it. I think I'm gonna go with black ashtray, just because they're so scunge. Hey, winner. There we go. Come on, be good, 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 be good. Yes. Oh my God, I can't believe you did all this work and put the doors back together with a dirty window. Legit forgot to clean the first one, so it is what it is at this point. And you're probably wondering why we've just gone through this whole saga. Well, in short, the steering wheel was actually not square on the column, so I've just corrected that. But the issue I normally run into with Boss kits is that there's not normally a puller that's small, has small enough holes to suit the really fine bolts that come in Boss kits. Most of the commercially available steering wheel pullers I've seen have wide slots for like a 10 or a 12 mil bolt. That being said, you could space it out with washers, but I find that depending on how much force you're putting in, the washer can actually fold and drag through the puller as well. So I've just come up with this simple little puller. It's just a bit of flat 6 mil plate, 4 holes in it, only because the width of the plate wasn't wide enough to get 6 holes in it. But that's neither here nor there. It has worked pretty successfully now on every car I've used it on. Just a fine metric bolt with a nut welded to the plate. And I've also just ground the bolt to a point so that it's not marring the front face of the steering column shaft, because it can, if it was a flat face, it could gall the thread or burr it over. So 95% of steering column shafts also have a hole pre-drilled in them for this sort of thing. So yeah, it's worth if you're going to make something like this. It's pretty simple, but it can save you a lot of time. We would have literally been wrestling this thing for hours because it just didn't want to budge. Even with the puller getting it off, it was a bit of an effort. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, some of these Boss kits, the tooling that they've been making these with is probably 30 plus years old. So unfortunately, on a Boss kit that's like a low demand one, like a prime example, like a Sigma, they probably haven't reinvested in making new tooling, which results in, unfortunately, the spline tolerances not being as good as they would have been 30 years ago when the tooling was made. That being said, the steering wheel is now square, and we're going to move on to the next job, which is pulling the fuel tank out. Wah, wah. That's a bad time. So this is a air separator which normally lives on the top of the fuel tank. Unfortunately, this one has separated more air than fuel, and now it makes fuel go on the ground because it's got a massive split. It's like a old school, I guess it's probably injection molded tank, but unfortunately it's molded in two halves and then plastic welded together. It's split basically the whole way around the seam. There's no real way to repair this, and unfortunately I haven't been able to find a replacement. So I think all I'm going to do is actually find some fuel hose. I think it's about 3/16. I'll go and buy about 1 meter of hose and a T-piece, and that should mean I can just join these together. While it's not the best solution, it still it means the tank will still breathe and it will stop leaking. So it's actually a better solution than leaving this or putting this back in. I still will endeavor to try and find an original one, but yeah, this one's definitely past its use by date, and I haven't been able to find one so far. So I'll cut this, cut both sides, dummy up the end pieces, and then work out how much I actually need to cut out of the middle piece to get it all square again. In theory. So this is our DIY fiberglass kit from Septone. This is a pretty good little kit if you're doing fiberglass repairs, because you get everything you need in one kit. You get a sheet of mat, you get your resin, you get your catalyst, you also get a couple of paddle pop sticks, trademark, and a mixing cup and a glove. So all of the stuff that you need to avoid your hands getting itchy, but also all the stuff you need to get the job done. So we're going to crack this sucker open and mix up some resin, and we're actually going to bond our aluminium strips to the back of the lip. Though they are going to be permanent, so this is going to stay in there. Hopefully that'll add a bit of strength in there as well as holding it all together in shape. So basically what we're going to do is bond them to the outer edges, then put the outer edges back on the car. Then once that's all mounted back on the car, we're going to put more resin on these faces here, and then we'll bond the center of it back to these braces in the car. Then next episode, we're actually going to pull it off the car and properly glass both of these joins, and we'll prep it and fill it, and then we'll get it ready for paint. And then I'll get someone to paint it because I'm a hack. But we'll continue along, and we'll be able to actually get this thing glassed together on the car today so that I can take it off and drive the car later. Oh, gloves in stereo. I'm gonna fit my bear claws. It's a foldy one. Yeah, 50mm is probably a good start today, actually. Yeah, that'll get us going. So the instructions say on a cold day, add 40 drops of catalyst to every 50mm of resin, and a hot day, add 20 drops. And it's about a medium day, so I'm gonna split the difference and go 30. This is the catalyst for the resin. So this is basically what activates the resin, because if you put that directly on matte, it will never, ever go off, and you'll end up with a very sticky mess that you can't sand or paint or do anything with. So highly recommend making sure you get your resin mix correct. As the instructions mentioned, different climates require different amount of catalyst. Also, different manufacturers may have a different ratio of mix. So although we're using the Septone kit today, I do recommend reading the instructions either on the kit that you use or on the tin of resin that you use, because as I mentioned, it's not across the board. Different manufacturers and different chemical suppliers will have different mixes and different ratios. So 30 drops, don't count the drops. It may or may not be right. A little handy tip if you're repairing or trying to fill can actually be to cut a bit of matte really finely and actually add that to your resin, so it gives it something to bond to. It'll allow better contact between the piece of aluminium and the fiberglass. I have also roughed up those pieces of aluminium as well, so I've given them a pretty good go on the linisher. That'll also promote adhesion and make sure that the thing actually goes together properly. Just make sure you put your aluminium strips on the right way. So see, most of that matte's already mixed with the resin to kind of make a bit of a paste. It's a pretty good little filler. I'm sure a fiberglassologist will tell you otherwise, but for me it works pretty well. But I am no fiberglassologist. Tea and crumpets. And I'm using aluminium rivets here because I'm actually going to sand them down. If you use steel rivets, you can't sand them down. Well, I mean, you can, but the sanding of aluminium is much neater. I feel like I'm doing a wax job. The color combined with the paddle pop stick. Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, the white's hard to perceive it. I'm thinking what I'll do is get it painted body, like the same orange, but then I might actually get a graphic with a cutout, like a satin black graphic over the top of the original paint. So reverse cut so that the color comes through the graphic.
Where'd you pull that idea from?
It's just very 70s. Like if we basically followed the silhouette of the front of the lip and then had like Galant or Sigma or 2600 or something like that. Well, it was a bit of a slow start today, but we ended up smashing a ton of extra little jobs off on the Sigma. The highlights for me being the door cards and the front chin spoiler. That thing's 95% of the way there pretty much now. Like it's basically just going to be a sand, maybe one more layer of fiberglass because I've got to go up that reveal, and then sand, fill and paint. I'll probably get it to the point where it needs high filling and then I'll send it to a painter because I'm still no good on the gun. And also we're not equipped to spray 2K here at all. So you need masks and respirators and all that sort of deal. So not something I currently have. But that being said, it's come up really well. I'm stoked with the look of it. I wasn't sure how I'd go putting a chin spoiler on it, but what actually sealed it for me was I recently saw a GE Sigma at a car show locally that had a chin spoiler. This one I've had sitting around for quite a while. I think I already mentioned it was originally destined for the Cresta, but for whatever reason, I don't know if the front apron's a bit of a different shape now because it has the intercooler, or if it's just actually not for a Cresta. It may just be a generic one that they decided for a Cresta. But I wasn't happy with the fitment on that car, so I decided to actually put it on this, and it was a much closer fit than I'd anticipated. And it's also a really good fit. This front radius on the apron is almost spot on. It was just that it was about 2.5 centimeters too wide. So we sectioned the left and the right side. I may or may not have touched on in the video. We didn't just strip through the middle because it actually comes to a peak, which I quite like. It's a nice little design feature rather than a lot of these things that are kind of a bit more square without having that peak in it. So I really wanted to keep that peak there, and I think it does add, and it also ties in with the car because we've already got obviously the peak in the bonnet with the line actually running all the way back to the cowl. So yeah, I think kind of tying in some of those themes together, and it's a little bit more unique than a lot of those other chin spoilers you can buy at the moment, especially like those plastic Mark 1 Golfs that you see on a lot of cars. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the outcome. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.